Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. That line is from the album I'm going to be doing today on this newest episode, number 42, I believe, of Waxing with Wade. Today, I'm featuring Emerson, Lake and Palmer. We're going to get our prog rock on, and they are just wonderful. Album from 1973, Brain Salad Surgery, their fourth studio album. Now, I want to show you the packaging on this before I tell you more about this record and play some music. So, this cover was designed by the famous Swiss artist H.R. Geiger, known for biomechanical art, mixing humans with machinery, and very famous artist in galleries everywhere. But they hired him to design this cover for them. It's a fold-out cover, and you can see. First, let me point out that there's a phallic symbol here, the bottom of that circle. Hopefully, you can see that. See it pretty well. Okay, the original design, which is of a woman's face here, had that same phallic symbol below her chin. However, the record company would not do it. They allowed it to be on the outside, but not on the inside where you have the human face, I guess was the reason. And by the way, this was his wife that he modeled the face after, the artist did. The back is very plain. It just says Brain Salad Surgery. H.R. Geiger also designed their new and long-lasting logo, ELP, at the bottom down there. And then, to top that off, we got this insert. On one side, we have some basic credits, but it doesn't tell who played every, yeah, it does kind of play, not by song, but it does have their basic credits. I want to read this before I show the other side. All the keyboards that Keith Emerson played, known as one of the greatest keyboardists in rock and roll history. He played organs, piano, harpsichord, accordion, and his custom-built Moog synthesizer, which is important on this album. Now, on the other side of this, we got this great photo of the band here, Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. And it folds out as such, with the circles coming off, and you can see them in all their glory. Great, cool fold-out poster. Hopefully you can see all that. Okay, on to the band and the album. Progressive rock, what is it? Well, I Googled it to see what it said. It's a fusion of styles, like rock music incorporating classical, jazz, folk, other elements that are not typical in rock and roll. We've also already heard some progressive rock from Santana, because their first 4 or 5 albums definitely fall in that genre. They were fusing styles. This is a fusion of symphonic and classical music with rock and roll, and with many jazz elements too, which I will point out. Came out in 1973. Their first album had one of their only 2 kind of hit songs, because they weren't really a single kind of band. They had more long opuses on their albums and live. First was Lucky Man on their first album in 1970, written by Greg Lake when he was 12 years old. First song he ever wrote. So I found interesting when he first got his first guitar. And then they had a couple more albums. They had a live album, Pictures at an Exhibition, and then came this that took the world by storm, kind of. I mean, this is really their peak years. They toured heavily behind this album. It is really awesome. I hope you enjoy what I play for you. Carl Palmer is, for me, maybe the greatest rock and roll drummer. He's definitely up there in the conversation with others. We're going to hear a little of his drum solo here. And Keith Emerson, as I mentioned, on keyboards, and Greg Lake on vocals, guitar, and bass. And he played bass a lot and tuned it in a way and fuzzed it up to make it sound more like a guitar. So sometimes when you think he might be playing guitar, he's actually playing a bass. And of course, he probably plays both on songs mixed on the album. We're going to start it off with the first song on the album, which is a And I'm going to play just the end of it, a classic hymn done by them called Jerusalem. You'll probably be familiar with it, from the early 20th century. We'll play the end of it and let it go into the second song, Toccata, and I'll let you hear the opening of that, which is more of a keyboard and drum piece. Grandiose there. This is Toccata. Because I want you to hear this drum solo by Keith Emerson. It's a really great drum solo here in the middle of this song. Pretty long too. Carl Palmer. Did I say Keith Emerson? Carl Palmer. Great drum solo, and this song is their only kind of airplay hit song other than Lucky Man. That song and this one still get airplay on classic rock radio. This is called Still You Turn Me On. I'll play the first verse. I really love this song. Greg Lake on vocals and guitar.
When
Moog synthesizer he's playing. Just wonderful together there. Okay, let me mention a little more history before I get into Carnival 9, which is the last song we're going to hear. I'll tell you a little bit about more about that in a second. But in history of the band, they stayed together until 1979. They got back together all through the 90s, all three of them playing as Emerson, Lake and Palmer, released 2 albums in the 90s and toured. But for 1 year in the 80s, they were Emerson, Lake and Powell, and it was just a coincidence that they got a drummer that started with the last name P. That's how they decided to keep the name of the band. They weren't looking for only drummers with the last name start with P. Cozy Powell, a longtime great rock drummer with a lot of bands, he filled in for Carl Palmer for a tour, Emerson, Lake and Powell, because Carl Palmer was still contractually obligated to Asia, which he was one of the original members of Asia, along with Steve Howe and Trevor, I can't think of his last name, from the Buggles, the band that formed Asia, and Chris Squire, I think, from Yes, as well as Steve Howe. And they were together for a period of years in the 80s, and Carl Palmer was part of that band. So I saw Emerson, Lake and Powell in Atlanta in 1986. I never got to see Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which is sad because of how much I love Carl Palmer as a drummer. Okay, Carnival 9, famous song by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but not one you're going to hear on the radio, except maybe excerpts from it, possibly part 2, impression 1. This song is 29.5 minutes long. Part 1 takes up the rest of this first side, it's 8.5 minutes. Part 2 is 21 minutes, takes up the entire second side, and it's broken in 3 impressions, impression 1, 2, and 3. So I'm just going to spotlight some pieces of it. It's got great melodies, great rocking, great just instrumental areas all throughout, all 4 parts. But I just want you to hear the start of it, and then I'll move it forward a little. This is part 1. I want you to hear the last 2. There's 3 verses at the end, just boom, boom, boom. I mean, there's a lot of lyrics on this part of the song. It's not all instrumental music. And I want you to hear the drum intro to this second verse. You'll hear it right after a few seconds after I put the needle down, I think. And then when it finishes and goes to the second verse, the really cool keyboard or synthesizer intro to the last verse. All right. That keyboard interlude there was so cool. Okay, Part 1 of Carnival Night. Now we're going to part 2, First Impression. This includes the iconic opening line, "Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends," as I started the show with, and it also was what they named their live album that came out after this. It was entitled, "Welcome back, my show, friends, to the show that never ends, comma, ladies and gentlemen, ... That was the name of the album, long title. And then it had Emerson, Lake and Palmer, like introducing them. Anyway, iconic opening. This is the song off of here besides "Still You Turn Me On" that you might hear on the radio.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. Behind the glass has a real blade of grass. Be careful as you pass. Move along, move along. Come inside, the show's about to start. Guaranteed to blow your head apart.
Go forward and let you hear the ending of this song, which is really cool. And it's going to go into, you hear the first part of the second impression, which is more of piano bass and drums, similar to toccata on the other side. Here's the ending of this song. Second impression. Obviously more jazzy than some of the rest of the album, and it really showcases, I don't know if you heard how awesome those drums were accompanying that keyboard, mainly piano in this song. I'm going to put it down in 2 or 3 places on this song, and you're going to hear some different sounds in it. Here's some probably more barroom piano style. Percussion going in there. I don't know what that is. Greg Lake on bass. All right, then this little ditty. Second impression. There's some spotlights from it, and there's no vocals on it. And I'm running out of time here. Third impression is great too, and a mix of vocals and music. However, I want you to hear the end of it. The last 30-40 seconds of this album really struck me when I first heard it. I think I had headphones on, and I encourage you to listen to the very last minute of this album online or somewhere where you can listen to it with earbuds. so you can hear the stereo separation. And this, I believe it's a keyboard or synthesizer little solo that ends it, that feels like it's circling your brain, front, back, side. I mean, it feels like it's going in a complete circle when you listen to it with earbuds. All right, let's see if I can get to it here. And you probably can't get the effect here, but I can with these two speakers. Oh, what an ending. And that blew my mind when I was a teenager, listening with headphones come out of the blue for me. Hope you enjoyed the episode and learning about Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Please come back next week and I will be having another episode of Waxing with Wade.